in July of 1989, Nintendo would kick off the portable gaming revolution with the release of the Game Boy, along with 5 launch titles. Today, we look at the first of these, arguably the most important pack-in title of all time, Tetris. What's poppin', gamers? Oh man, you have no idea how long I've been wanting to do this for. It's GarbyBoy here, and welcome to the first edition of my new series, GarbyBoy. This is a look, sort of an overview of eventually all of the North American Game Boy's games ever released. There are just over 500 to cover, so I'm going to be doing this for the foreseeable future. Eventually, after I get through the launch lineup, I will be sort of interspersing these regularly between regular playthroughs. So if I'm just not feeling up to recording a regular video for one session, I'll switch over and record some Game Boy. These are going to be, usually I'm going to try to keep these between 30 to 40 minutes, unless I'm going to be fully playing through the game. In that case, I'll try to still keep the episodes to 30-40 minutes, and if there needs to be multiple parts, in that case, there'll be multiple parts. For today, we're doing, like I said, Tetris. This is the pack-in game for the Game Boy, the original pack-in game. And yeah, just going to be kind of a more chill, laid-back overview of the game. I'll discuss some history and features with the game, and we'll just have kind of a fun time talking about a console library that I have a lot of nostalgia for, and a lot of fond memories with, a lot of passion for as well. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get started. There is a 2-player mode. I will not be showing that off, unfortunately, as I do not have another person to play with. Maybe one day I will kind of go through some of these games and show off their 2-player modes. You probably know what Tetris is. This is probably not a surprise to anybody. You know how the game works. Blocks fall from the top of the screen. You try to make lines to kind of clear them out and keep your well nice and small. We'll kind of get more into that as I get into the game. So we have some options here. We have A-type and B-type for the game. A-type is your standard endless Tetris, so you get right into the game and... you get right into the game and basically you just play until your well fills up completely, and the game progressively gets faster and faster as you clear more lines. And then there's B-type, which is, I believe you clear, I want to say 20 lines? It's 20 or 30, I'm pretty sure. With a certain amount of initial speed, and then basically once you hit 20 lines, you clear the stage. So I think I'm going to start off, I'm going to show both of these off for a little bit. I'm going to start off with some A-type. Really the only other option in single player is your choice of music. So you have A-type, which is the classic Tetris theme that you've been hearing in the background. B-type, play a little bit of that. And C-type as well. So I'm pretty sure these are all kind of classic Russian folk tunes. I don't know what to call them, but or you can just have no music as well. So I think we're going to start off with A-type. Next up, you pick your levels. This is basically how fast you want the game to start out at. 0 is the slowest speed, and then 9 is pretty fast. So we're just going to start off with, let's just go with 0 for now, noob type beat. And here we are, this is Tetris. So if you've never played this particular iteration of Tetris, this early-ass version of the game, there's going to be quite a few differences if you're used to sort of the newer iterations of Tetris. One of the big things is there's no quick drop. So normally in Tetris you press the up button on the D-pad and you can drop pieces instantly. Unfortunately, that is not something you can do in the Game Boy version, which can make things a little slow, but you can still hold down to sort of quick drop the pieces. You just can't insta drop. So I'm by no means a Tetris expert, as you can tell by this kind of awful well I've got going on here. So I'm going to try my best here, but no promises you'll get some high-level Tetris gameplay. Okay. And this is on the slow speed, guys, so once we get to the faster speeds, normally I'm okay at the faster speeds when I'm not commentating, but this is just going to be a whole shit show, because I am commentating. So yeah, this game, there's a whole story behind how this game kind of came to be. I'm not going to get into it too much here. They made a whole ass movie about it. There's plenty of documentaries you can watch on YouTube about how this game came to be, but it's really interesting. Really kind of an interesting story and an interesting legal precedent. Basically trying to figure out who owned the rights to this game. Because for those who don't know, it was originally created in Soviet Russia by a man by the name of Alexei Pajitnov, and he had made it on, like, I think it was mainframes at either his job or his school, and obviously this was back when Russia was a communist nation, so there was it was up in the air whether Pajitnov kind of owned the software or if it was the institution that owned the software. It was a whole kind of confusing thing, and it ended up, the actual rights to distribute Tetris ended up with a company called Bulletproof Software, and they sort of sub-licensed the game. As you can see, I'm already 5 lines and that was it. Jeez, man. Yeah, so they sub-licensed the game to Nintendo, so this is a fully by-the-books, legal version of Tetris, which is interesting because that you couldn't necessarily say that about every version of Tetris to come out in this era. There were famously a few versions that had to be pulled from shelves because the companies making them did not own the rights. I think Tengen, which was a company owned by Atari, put out an NES version of Tetris before Nintendo put out their NES version. And that was famously scrubbed from shelves a few weeks after it was released because of it technically not being legal. So that was absolutely horrible. We're going to give that one more shot there. Hopefully I do a little bit of a better job. Commentary might be a little sparse in this video, because I do kind of want to focus on playing alright. I want to show you guys a good representation of this game. I don't want to make it look harder than it is. So I say this is one of the most... I would say this is probably the most important pack-in title of all time. I think the only thing to maybe rival it would be Wii Sports, but yeah, I would say this is probably the most impressive pack-in game, or important pack-in game of all time. Because of how perfect it was for the Game Boy. Puzzle games especially, as you'll see as we go kind of further in on this series, puzzle games were kind of the Game Boy's bread and butter. There were a lot of those, and honestly, they kind of work perfectly for playing on original Game Boy, because the Game Boy kind of famously had a very terrible, non-backlit, very smeary screen that had really horrible viewing angles, and you pretty much had to be playing in direct light to see anything. So slower paced. Not to say Tetris is really that slow paced, but puzzle games that didn't require like twitch action, like a lot of platformers did, really thrived on Game Boy because they didn't require you to really like perfectly see the screen at all times. It was easier to make puzzle games out than it was faster paced platformers and stuff. So this really was like pretty much the perfect game to ship with Game Boy, to show off sort of what it was capable of and sort of what types of games it would thrive best at having. So I think I'm doing a little better this time. I've cleared out more lines. You sort of get into this with Tetris if you've ever played it and you ever got kind of decent at it. You sort of get into this like flow state, and you kind of just lock in. You kind of just go quote-unquote gamer mode. I'm going to place that there. So a bit of a hiatus from the channel again there. Post Mega Man 2, I wanted to take a couple days to just kind of reset and figure out how exactly I was going to do this series. I've been wanting to do something relating to the Game Boy for half a decade now. I started really collecting Game Boy stuff back in 2021, like just post-COVID. I got really into Game Boy collecting. That was just about the time, I started at a really bad time. That was around the time when game prices, retro game prices really started to skyrocket quite a bit. So it was it's an interesting time to go out and try to build up a collection. The nice thing is Game Boy games have always been, they're starting to definitely go up in price quite a bit more now, but Game Boy games have always been relatively cheap compared to, like, if I was to build up an NES library. Like, I've never wanted to build up an NES library just because of how damn expensive so many of the good games are. Whereas for Game Boy, you can build up a pretty impressive collection of Game Boy stuff without really breaking the bank. You can get a lot of the best games for this console without spending, you know, exorbitant amounts of money. You definitely have to put in a fair few dollars if you want some of the more recognizable games. But they definitely, like, I'm talking Canadian dollars here, they tend to hover around the kind of, I could be wrong here, but I think they're mostly around the sort of $30 to $40 range, whereas a lot of good NES stuff is around the, like, $50, $60, $70, $80 mark. So yeah, you can still, if you are interested in building up a Game Boy collection, I highly recommend doing so. It's a very fun system to collect for. Definitely the most fun I've had collecting for a Nintendo system out of any of them, to be honest. There's a lot of Nintendo systems that are just not fun to collect for because of how much people charge for them games, man. Nintendo games are sort of notoriously scalped and in high demand. Maybe not necessarily in high demand, people just charge a shitload of money for them. So that's not fun. That's not cool. But we make do. Look for deals. Definitely want to be doing some more kind of like retro game shopping focused videos at some point. I don't know if that's something people would watch, but I'd love to. I was definitely thinking about getting a pair of those, like, meta glasses. And just walking around doing some local game hunting, yard sailing, that sort of thing. Seeing what deals I can come up with. So if that's something you guys want to see, let me know. I'd love to do that. When the weather gets a little nicer, we're starting to head into the awful cold months here, so that probably won't be until the spring at the very least, but eventually it's something I'd like to do. So yeah, this was like I said, this was the pack-in game for the Game Boy, so Nintendo released this game along with 4 others at Game Boy's launch in, as far as we know, I believe it was July 31st, 1989, so about 36 years ago now? Crazy to think that was 36 years ago. Well before my time. Yeah, and the interesting thing there is they released those 5 launch games, and then that was pretty much it for Nintendo for the entire rest of 1989. Keep in mind, like I said, the console came out in July, and they did not release another game until, I believe, January or February of 1990. So they kind of sat out the whole second half of the year. And really everyone did, because third parties didn't really have enough time to release games in 1989, in North America at least. In Japan, a few games came out. But yeah, there would only be one other game for Game Boy in 1989, and I figured I might as well cover that one as well before starting up the next full playthrough. So it's going to be this kind of look back, this initial look back. These initial episodes are going to be the launch lineup plus one extra game at the end, and that'll be a fun one. I'm excited to get to that game. I'll keep it a surprise if you don't know what it is, but it'll be interesting. It'll be fun one for sure. It'll be a fun one. So, I'm at 48 lines here. I might as well just go until I die at this point. And then after that, I'll show off Mode B, and suppose I'll end it there. We'll see. Oh, that was bad. So Tetris obviously spawned quite the legacy of games. It is one of the best-selling video game franchises of all time. I think it is the best-selling game franchise, if I'm not mistaken. Get that in there. So yeah, lots of Tetris games. You've probably owned at least one Tetris game or played at least one Tetris game in your life. Whether that be the mobile game or like Tetris 99 on Switch. My personal favorite flavor of Tetris is Tetris Effect. Especially if you've ever played that game in VR, been lucky enough to play that game in VR, it is kind of a magical experience, so I would highly recommend doing that. Oh my god, I just squandered everything here. Let's see, can I save this? Oh shit. Oh man. 52 lines, not too bad. Let's pick a different name here. Let's go... Meg. Family Guy reference. Alright, so that was A-type. Let's do some B-type, and I might as well switch it up with the music here. We're going to go B-type music to match. So you get to pick your level with B-type, which is the speed, and then you also get to pick, once you've picked your speed, you get to pick a height from 0 to 5. This basically means how much garbage starts in the well. So 0 would be no garbage, but if I do like say 1, it starts with a few lines of garbage to start out, and it's 25 lines. Okay. So basically B-type is just clear out 25 lines however you can, as fast as you can. And I believe the speed gets faster every 5 clears? I'm pretty sure. Let's see. So with this mode, I try to keep the well as low as possible, rather than focusing on getting like big clears. Getting Tetrises is what they're called. If you can get a 4-line clear, that's called a Tetris, if you didn't know. So it must not be every 5 clears, because I just did 5 and I'm still at level 0. Maybe it doesn't speed up. Maybe I'm forgetting this. Yeah, interesting. It must not speed up. So there really isn't too much to this first version of Tetris here. If you were expecting a whole whack of features like a lot of modern Tetrises have, you're sorely mistaken, because there ain't much here, but to be honest, it was all that it really needed to be when it came out. Because this game sold like crazy. Well, it sold like crazy when it wasn't bundled in, but obviously it was sold one-to-one with the console when you first bought it, because it was packed in. One thing I always wonder was, like, when this game was brand new, did they also sell it, like, physically separate from the console bundle as well? Because say you got your Game Boy either, like, secondhand and it didn't include this game, or you got your Game Boy with this game and you either like lost the cartridge or broke the cartridge and wanted to replace it, could you go to the store and buy a physical packaged version of Tetris like right after launch? Like I know later on you could. It was a Nintendo like a greatest hits game after a while. I think that's the cartridge I have, was the greatest hits version. So eventually you could go into a store and buy it, but that was only after a few years. So what I'm wondering is, was it ever, like, at launch, packaged as a regular retail release? If anyone knows the answer to that, please let me know. I'm really interested. I've built myself kind of an awful well here. This is not going super well. Super well. So I'd like to think for most of this series, most of these videos, I can kind of keep my commentary a little more chill and laid back compared to the more, like, hyper me in Super Mario Brothers and Mega Man. My regular Let's Plays, I should say. Anything going forward. Because I just want to sit down and play some damn video games. Play some damn Game Boy games. Not really think too much about giving crazy, super informative commentary. Well, I guess I do want to be informative, but not, I guess not too funny. I want to focus more on being informative than being comedic. I could really use a straight line piece here. Oh, this is awful. Oh my god. Yeah, it's over. I couldn't even beat level 0 mode B. I gotta give that one more shot. I gotta redeem myself a little bit here. Let's go level 5 and garbage 0. Here we go. I'm gonna lock in fully for this. Boom, baby! Perfect. Let's go like that. It's not really a great place to put that one. Drop that down there, get a couple clears. Drop that in there. Drop that right there. It's so sad. This game is so satisfying, guys. If you have somehow been living under a rock for the last 36 years and have not played Tetris ever, like, I have to implore you to play Tetris. I think you can even just play it free on your browser or on your phone. Please just play Tetris. That's the moral of this video, is play this fucking game. It's so good. Especially when you get into like a flow state. Alright, here we go. I maybe should have used that straight piece a little better. Oh, I'm getting another one. Here we go. Boom! Another Tetris. Place that there. Boom, they call me Gamer Johnson. They call me Gamer Johnson. So at the end of a round there, it calculates how many of each clear you did. So I did 13 singles, 2 doubles, no triples, interestingly, and 2 Tetrises. Took me 361 drops, and that is it. So we'll go ahead and we'll do our normal initial thing here. Garby, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's Tetris. I've been going for about 26 minutes, which is fine by me for such a simple game. I showed off pretty well all I wanted to show off. Oh, I guess real quick, do C-type, and then I'll just show off what level 9 looks like. So real quick, this is the fastest speed in Tetris for Game Boy. Or not the fastest speed, but the fastest speed it'll let you start at. So just do a quick one of these, and then end it when I inevitably fill this well up horribly. And get some of that C-type music going as well. You know what? Actually, I'm not doing terribly here. Now, the Game Boy processor could have probably done a faster starting speed. Oh shit, this is bad. But honestly, I think even going this fast, if you were to play this speed on an original Game Boy screen, it would have pretty quickly devolved into a smeary, unreadable mess. So thank the fine folks over at Nintendo and Bulletproof for not making this game impossible to play on original hardware. Oh, I guess one other production note I wanted to mention before I end the episode. And there we go. There's my pitiful attempt at level 9, 5 total clears. One last kind of thing I wanted to mention before I wrap the episode up. Did just want to go through my recording setup for this. So, just let me input my initials here. Oops. Oh shit. Well, I guess I'll just stop it here then. Yeah, so my recording setup for this, just before I finish, I am recording this all on an analog pocket. If you don't know what that is, it is a high-end Game Boy sort of emulation. It's what's known as FPGA, so basically it's a chip in the device that is fully hardware emulating the Game Boy, rather than it being like a software emulator like most traditional emulators. So this is playing as if it was playing on original Game Boy hardware 1-to-1 with no inaccuracies. I am using an original Tetris cartridge in the analog pocket for this, as I do own all of the launch lineup physically. So I'll be playing all of the games that you see here on their original cartridges. For better or for worse, I did have to spend, side note, I did have to spend like 20 minutes cleaning the cartridge with alcohol and Q-tips because it just wasn't reading. So the benefits of using 40-year-old software. So I've got that playing through the Analog Pockets dock through my TV, and then of course I'm routing the footage through to my capture card as well, being captured by my PC. So just a fun little note on how I'm doing all this and why the footage looks so crispy clean. When I said that normal Game Boy is horrible. Normal Game Boy screen quality is awful. There are so many better ways to play Game Boy on original cartridges. I cannot recommend the Analog Pocket enough if you're looking to start a physical Game Boy collection. I believe they're still available on Analog's website. They're not cheap, but honestly, for this, you're paying pretty well the same cost if you were to buy an original Game Boy and get it modded so that it's actually usable. With a better screen, you're paying pretty well the same price as you would for a Pocket. So just go with one of these and save yourself the hassle. Alright, so that is the first episode of GarbyBoy done and dusted. Thank you all so much for watching. I I had a really good time with this, and I'm not planning on slowing down anytime soon. If you like this, give it a like. If there's any games in particular on the Game Boy that you want to see me do sooner rather than later, let me know in the comments, and I would love to get to them. I don't have a set order for games after I'm done the launch lineup, so any game is up for grabs as long as it's not a sequel. I'd rather play the original game first before getting to any sequels. So yeah, let me know if there's any childhood games of yours that you played on Game Boy that you'd love to see me cover. Eventually, I would love to do Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance as well. But I think that's going to be I'm going to save that for well into the future. I'm going to focus on the original black and white old gray brick Game Boy for now. So yeah, as for what's up next, I haven't exactly decided what game I'm going to do next. Just kind of looking over at the launch lineup here. I think we'll do baseball next. Yeah, we'll do baseball. So I'll see you guys here next time in probably a few days for the second episode of the GarbyBoy launch lineup extravaganza. That'll be on Game Boy Baseball. See you guys then.